color. Bastiaan is coming from the Token Factory Switzerland AG, and Bastiaan, he's a full entrepreneur and investor, till 15 years of experience, built and sold companies within the IT and real estate industries. We will do that talk now in English again, but so we want to do that when we open our panel 3:30, though we will talk then in German. Everything there, what is possible, so we do that in German. But we have there in the panel then Mark Wilson. He comes from America, from Appian, is the founder. He will only speak in English again, but we do now in English the next one. And yeah, how do you feel?
I feel very good, very happy to be here. Thank you, Tino, for inviting me, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope in the next 25 minutes I can give a short insight into the world of real estate and blockchain, and I'm very much looking forward to our talk.
Thank you. Really well English. That's fine. I will start with my first question. Bastiaan, please tell us about yourself and the company Token Factory.
Yeah, so maybe shortly to myself. I have a real estate background. So from 2006 to 2016, together with a study friend, we built up a company where we rented out furnished apartments to expats in a completely digital way, meaning that from day one, people were able to sign a rent contract online and don't have to come to Switzerland before renting an apartment, which obviously was fully furnished, including services. Mm-hmm. I'm mentioning this point because the key topic today is digitalization. I feel very much at home, as mentioned, even before 2006, always following the latest trends, and at some point discovered Bitcoin quite early on. Was quite exciting, obviously the whole price speculations, but for me always the blockchain part stand out, which initially wasn't even called blockchain. So I've been following that topic since over 6 years, maybe even more, on a daily basis, almost hungry to read more about it. And as many of you know, besides Bitcoin, excuse me, there's another quite well-known blockchain called Ethereum. And at some point in time, in the early days, I understood that it's possible to build certain parts of a business model on this very exciting protocol. Mm-hmm. If you want, we can go a bit into detail, but on the tech. But usually these talks are very heavily tech focused. Happy to do so, but I always like to talk about actual use cases. And we had that as a focus since day one. On the one hand, we built in-house a product which is called blockimmo, a real estate tokenization platform, enabling fractionalized ownership in real estate indirectly, I must say. And on the other hand, we were from day one in close contact with the financial regulators, FINMA in Switzerland, FMA, and obviously always had a key focus on the whole additional part. Tokenization as such is cool, but without having the option to trade these digital assets, specifically of value rights. It's like a missing leg, right? Even today, this is the situation. And besides some press releases and some announcement, there's not much happening. We'll come to that in a second. So anyways, we got a product. We tokenized the first building in Zug, which I'll mention a bit later in 2019 in March. We worked closely together with a bank in Liechtenstein on tokenizing a first real estate fund powered by our technical solution. And like I mentioned before, I'm quite active in the trading area for digital assets, working closely with the private bank in Zurich. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, always have a strong focus on decentralized business models. Keyword is Uniswap. There are lots of exciting things happening still, and I think it's in a nutshell what I'm doing at the moment.
Okay, it's very interesting. I had a lot of questions about that, but go further. Sure. For these questions, what I have here by me, real estate and blockchain. Where do we stand today?
Yeah, I think I'll dive into the real estate part in a second, but in general, blockchain, there's this nice hype cycle. I'm happy to share this presentation later if people are interested. By Gantner, which actually came out last year, which shows that we're more or less at the bottom. So we're in the disillusional phase, which is a great place to be in, I think. So a lot of hot air and big talk has been filtered out, which was also needed in order to clean up the image of this new technology. From day one, education has been in delay, so a lot of people took advantage of the not knowing of the people who are listening, and luckily now this is slowly changing. It's still very abstract. I had a class yesterday with master students in Zurich, people who work at all kinds of financial providers, service providers, insurances. And again, I can only say it's still very abstract when we talk about blockchain and do some brainstorming. And most importantly, there are very seldom applications, and in that sense, the focus is now changing on seeing blockchain technology as a means to an end, so not a holy grail. And in that sense, also in the real estate, there were a lot of startups, including myself, I must admit, who were very euphoric. But it's not that easy, specifically in real estate, I'll come to that in a second, to build a resilient business model. There are a lot of theoretical benefits, we'll come to that in a second. That's the status today. Yeah.
Okay. Which use cases of this technology will come through in the near future?
Yep. So I'm still convinced that on the one hand, tokenization of real estate, even if it's indirect initially, will be a huge topic. So creating a digital replication of a building or of a portfolio of real estate and enabling a global market to invest is in theory very attractive. And the second topic I see huge potential within the real estate is real estate data, and with that the land register. Maybe in the next couple of minutes we'll go a bit into detail there, what it means.
You're welcome. What are the benefits of real estate tokenization?
Right. So again, I want to stress that these are theoretical benefits. But let's have a look at them. On the one hand, the key benefits for an investor are the fact that he can, with a smaller ticket size, invest in certain assets. So there are basically no capital requirements. Maybe just shortly, very concrete, you can mint 1 million tokens, and if it's legally correctly structured, these tokens can represent, again, a portfolio or a building at a fractional cost. And all the changes in ownership are done on this distributed ledger, on the blockchain. So again, this infrastructure enables these kind of processes to be done suddenly at a very low cost, also from an admin perspective. So that should be the key driver here. Then another hype keyword is obviously the liquidity increase. That's again a theoretical one. I'm still convinced that once illiquid assets become tradable worldwide in a regulated fashion, there might be a very big chance that these assets also slowly become more liquid. Then on the real estate owner side, they suddenly have a very easy, quick access to additional capital. Basically anybody in the world with an internet connection and a certain amount of wealth or investment capital can theoretically participate, obviously keeping in mind that we're in a regulated market, AML, KYC processes. But still it's very significant. And that's an assumption or a prediction, but given the fact that we are able to lower the cost dramatically, enable a secondary market, hopefully within the next 12 months, I expect that people are willing to pay eventually higher prices for a piece of real estate because they have this flexibility.
That's very interesting, I think, and perhaps we have their position in our panel again. When we discussed that with Michael Mosimann, perhaps.
Right.
What are the challenges of real estate tokenization?
Yep. I think that's why I emphasized before that these are theoretically the positive elements of building these part of a business model under or with a blockchain. Right now, the complexity of asset tokenization is mainly due to legal uncertainties. So on the one hand, in all markets which are quite well rated, including Switzerland and the EU, there is no clean legislation to cleanly connect a token to the underlying assets. So most of the cases you've heard about, they are structured as a debt, which I think is not very attractive when we're talking about real estate. Obviously in focus is certainty, and debt is definitely not part of that focus. So on the value right side or on the equity side, it's currently not possible to structure a token because of numerous laws and regulations. We'll come to that in a second. Additionally to real estate, I mentioned it before, we have the land register. There are some challenges to overcome here as well, specifically the part where the owner can currently only be a natural person or a jurisdictional person. Another element which I think is biting the purpose of blockchain. So we're trying to move away from this society where we trust big silos. Blockchain has absolutely the potential and already nicely showed that in form of Bitcoin as a currency, which is not controlled by any centralized government or national bank. And in that sense, a great example of where we can be heading. On the other hand, again, these specific laws where at the moment we make a distinction between professional and private or retail investors makes it very hard to give retail investors with the lower capital requirements access to these financial markets. So right now they only have indirect access, which basically means they have to go through their bank. And the bank, even if you come up with an ISIN, in a lot of cases will tell you, oh, we don't support that product, we rather push our own products. So that's something we definitely need to move away from. Maybe just quickly emphasizing the fact that securitization equals tokenization. I think it's pretty much clear now, but in the early days, 2017, people had the feeling, I'll issue a token and I don't need to touch any laws and regulations. We all know how that ended for certain people and groups. I mentioned it before, we need a secondary marketplace for these tokenized interesting investments, and without that, tokenization as such is maybe a bit of marketing, but not much else, right? You're just creating another layer. Yeah. And then I'm quite convinced that in terms of standardization, specifically using the Ethereum blockchain, which is basically 5 years ahead of anything else, we are on a good way even using a ERC20 token, which is basically powering any token at the moment. And it's very easy to have a template. You can create even a control token within minutes. You can easily apply regulatory, regulatory requirements into the smart contract. So perfectly possible to use this global standard. And in that sense, we're heading in the right direction.
Okay, that's very interesting. That's what we have to find in the future there, I hope.
Right.
First, real estate tokenization in Crypto Valley Zug. Please share some insights on how this big milestone was executed.
Yeah. So this was one of our biggest milestones in 2019 in March, 1st of March. And normally I can spend about an hour just about this use case because it's still, again, new technology, for some people very abstract. But in a nutshell, what we did was that we worked together closely with a real estate owner, which was also understanding blockchain as a technology and the potential very well. So we were, to say it very simple, very lucky And we had two other partners, Elea Labs, who works on property data. We'll come to that in a second. And excuse me, for the currency leg, because we want a fully digital transaction, we were closely working together with Bitcoin.SWISS, the daughter company called Swiss Crypto Tokens, and they issue a stablecoin which is one-to-one pegged to the Swiss franc, which enabled us to have a completely digital transaction, including traceable transactions on the blockchain. So unlike many other announcements, anybody can verify this transaction. We have links on our homepage, which I normally show. You can have a look at the code, at the smart contracts. You'll see that there's a token representing this building. And on the other hand, you'll see the transactions of these four investors. Obviously, they used our graphical user interface, so our software. And we're looking under the hood where you can find those transactions. And in that sense, it was a first step, obviously not completely there where we want to go, right? Thousands of investors, open for all. But in terms of having executed the process, having real experience with all the parties involved, it helped us tremendously to move into the next phase where, on the one hand, we provide our tech solution to financial intermediaries, and on the other hand, obviously keep developing a tokenization platform for various markets.
Okay. Yes. Congratulations, because it is a really big project. First, if you do that, it's a big puzzle, I think, from thousands of steps.
True.
To bring that to a successful principle.
Yeah.
And I think we can talk about that 2 hours and more easily.
True.
But
just want to emphasize that again. As you can see, we did that with 3 other parties. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible, right?
So, yeah, I think so. And because there's a question how it is possible to change the fiat money perhaps in token, or to invest in a token building like that, and a tokenized building in that. I think it's a question. Do you have an answer of that?
Yeah. Initially, before we did the transaction, we obviously asked the investors to convert their, let's say, normal Swiss francs into a digital representation. So concrete, that means they become a client of Swiss Crypto Tokens, and they send a banking transaction to this company, and in return receive the same amount of Swiss francs into their wallet, which again is a one-to-one representation of the Swiss franc.
Okay.
So you're basically mirroring what we're doing in the current world on the blockchain, and then suddenly you can start using these applications. And this transaction was done at, I think, 10:06, and we were done at 10:15.
Okay.
So the money was at the owner, the tokens representing the building were in the wallet of the investor, and a little bit live illustrating that it was done without intermediaries. But again, I want to emphasize that there are many things that need to be happened in order to make this mass adoption tauglich, applicable.
But this up and down, what we have to know in the past by Bitcoin, for example, or other coins, Ethereum and so like that, is this the same by token?
That's a very good question. So on the one hand, that was the key reason we were actually very happy that Bitcoin.SWISS issued this product, because it's a stablecoin. As the name says, it's one-to-one pegged with the Swiss franc. So it's stable. And the token representing the building is actually a very exciting topic. Again, we could spend some time on that. Obviously, there's no example in the current world, right? Suddenly, an illiquid asset theoretically becomes tradable anytime. What will happen to the price? My assumption, in very short, is that there always be an valuation of the building, and the token might float around this valuation depending on bid and offers. So ask and sell.
I hope so that we have some experience together by the next step, because I want to bring our own building in, and so we have perhaps in the near future, offer.
Yeah, I would be delighted to work with you.
We'll see what's happened there. It's really interesting. Right. One question more: what is your future outlook for real estate tokenization?
Right. So. Maybe before I start, on the right side, you'll see how people thought about electricity. And there was a quite famous man who, even in 1989, had the feeling that the internet would have an impact similar to a fax machine. I got this quote from a presentation of Roger from HSG, just to highlight that. But it gives a good overview of that. The overestimation effect, I think, is over. And we're now in a phase where a lot of people underestimate this technology. So maybe as an example, you've probably heard it before, internet enabled the exchange of information to become instant at almost zero cost, right? Example, email, maybe even another example, WhatsApp. Maybe a tricky example, this whole COVID situation might have been much different if we wouldn't have this infrastructure. Let's park that one. I'm pretty convinced that if we reduce the value, the cost of transferring value to almost zero, there will be an exponential increase of financial transactions, and with that, in any market, a flood of innovation. And right now we're in this shallow, calm down phase. Although I can only confirm I'm working on some projects which are extremely exciting, and maybe just again highlighting the upcoming law changes in Switzerland. Very positively surprised by the EU. Also, they looked very closely to Liechtenstein, but it seems that they get it in a first step to enable these kind of markets without having these supervisors looking over your shoulder. So, yeah, in short, I'm very positive about the future.
Okay. Thank you for this answer, and I find some questions here from the chat. There's a question from Guy. It's you know him as I know him too, I think. Do you see any sign from big logistics players like FedEx, DHL, and etc. using blockchain soon?
Me personally, not, to be honest. It's one of the few areas where you still read this big marketing stuff. About what can be done with blockchain, traceability, transparency. But unfortunately, I haven't seen anything with some more meat to the bone. But again, I'm not the holy grail, so hopefully they're working on it. There's tremendous potential there as well.
Yeah. Okay, there's another question from Paul. Do you see real estate security token being traded on unregulated exchanges like Uniswap, or will they be traded on traditional and regulated exchanges?
Yeah, super question. I'm a big fan of Uniswap since day one. I think it's one of the most innovative things built on top of Ethereum. There are some other protocols which are now coming out in this AMM space. And I'm convinced that this whole DeFi world, so decentralized finance, will move closer to the traditional and regulated markets. We can learn a lot from these protocols. And to be honest, I'm working on one project myself with a key focus of using these protocols in a regulated fashion, which is perfectly possible.
Okay, good. Bernard, I have a question here. Though there is no present project to invest in, and what is your assumption? Yep. When will there be a project?
Yeah, so maybe I think I left it out a little bit looking at the time, but the Swiss laws, which have been passed in Parliament in different chambers unanimously, which is quite unique, are, they mentioned this 2 days ago, going to be active on the 1st of August 2021. So let's say that the people I'm talking to are obviously very happy with this progress, but I don't think we will see much before this legislation is actually coming into force. Mainly because you only have one chance to do this right? So you want to have a clean structure, a clean token representing a certain asset, if it's real estate. And in that sense, we still have to be a bit patient, but I'm convinced it's going to come soon.
Okay, thank you. And there's another question from SES. Tokenization promotes global real estate markets with a wider inclusion. Tax regimes pertaining to cryptocurrencies are not even defined in all countries. This created a complex web as a tax. Now it's, where is it? Now the question is, jump it. There is it.
Yeah.
Again, this create a complex web as a tax structure would differ across different countries. What is your option on this?
I think it's a good point. I do think that looking at the projects I'm supporting, there's nothing new in a way. So you still have a regulated assets and there are certain implications on the tax side, right? So if you start issuing tokens, you have to follow these rules, and it's even perfectly possible to do this with the existing solutions. So what I'm trying to say is you might have people holding digital assets now where before they might be holding non-digital assets. But that comes after, right? So you already have your tax process in place, you have your reporting, maybe a little bit concreter on your user profile. At the end of the year, you can download a tax report and it says your traditional financial instruments, what you're holding, and the digital financial instruments you're holding, with all the implications that follow, which are active today.
Okay. There's another question from Martina, a question from an older person, whatever this means. If I have my pension money tied into real estate, how tax savvy would I need to be to start investing? If I don't want to use wallets, etc., but go somewhere to get help?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that another challenge, again, for time reasons, I didn't put it in, but the usability of the solutions are today not yet there where they should be. Although there were some really promising projects, and one of them is in the area of wallet management, custodians, if they're also called like that. But long story short, maybe today you have your trusted wealth manager, or even you feel very comfortable doing it yourself in your e-banking system. I'm convinced that certain banks will be able to integrate these kind of solutions without any problem into their core banking infrastructure. So they work very closely with certain selected startups who have a completely white-labeled, meaning a completely working solution, which they can sell in the background. That's why it's called white-labeled. And the bank suddenly, within maybe 3 months, can offer digital assets and benefit from all these benefits. So there are a couple of ways. If you feel comfortable doing it yourself, it's definitely something I would advise. But on the other hand, I'm aware of certain banks who are very close to doing exactly what I just said. So it's going to be an option for any age group, in my opinion. Yep.
Thank you, Bastiaan. One question, the last one now, because the time is running. Yep. The question from Michael from Germany. Thank you, Michael, for your English question. If real estate is tokenized in the future, and if there will be not an owner, but hundreds of owners, who will then be responsible for maintenance of the building, such as a money pool for repaying?
Yeah, I think also here nothing changes by the fact that you tokenize a building. So normally a larger building generating interest has a management company, and this management company has a contract with the owner. So the cool thing about tokenization is that you obviously can hold virtual votings on if you want to change the management company, if you want to hire or lower their budget limitations. And for bigger maintenance projects, the management company will usually collect 4 or 5 offers, and among the token holders you can vote which company may do the maintenance work. So we digitize the process, but the process itself doesn't change. Maybe as a note here in my white paper on blockimmo.ch, we go very much into detail also on these kind of topics.
Okay. Now we do the last one because we have 2 minutes. From Guy again. With the world pandemic scenario, commercial properties are losing value with people working from home. Considering this, how this model can be profitable?
I think we'll have a direct call together on that topic. I have some ideas. It's always a challenge. There's always an opportunity, even in these complicated times. And I think this is exactly one which smart people in the real estate are now thinking of. I think, again, on a direct call, I'm happy to exchange a bit more on the topic. Yeah.
Bastiaan, thank you for that. This was a lot, I think. Oh, there's another one. We have to wait. I think Thiago, the next speaker, is a bit late. He comes from Brazil and he needs a longer line, I think. Matthias, besides the cost of a tokenization ATM, do you see the missing secondary market and the lack of exchanges as a debilitating factor?
Yeah. So today, that's definitely the reason why there's nothing happening, right? It's all theoretically. And nobody really want to burn their fingers on this highly regulated secondary marketplace for regulated assets. And on the other hand, I think that, again, certain bigger companies are preparing and are very much ready once this changes. So once these hurdles are taken, then I think we're looking at quite some exciting projects and products coming out. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for all this information. It was really competent and all deep, I think, what's happened or what we can do now in 30 minutes. I will give you my special present from Daniele Ganser.
Thank you very much.
It's very interesting. This is hand-signed.
Cool.
And I think we will have a lot of things inside. Yep. But then we see us later.
Yep.
And now I go further. Thank you. Yep.